With reference to the first lesson this morning, if you have never heard the oratorio Elijah by Felix Mendelssohn, look it up and listen to parts of it anyway, particularly the passage that we read from where the Lord confronts him in the mountain. That is one of the most amazing pieces of music in the Western canon as far as I'm concerned, and so I commend it to you. But this morning, we're talking about demons. Demons. Demon is actually a rather strange and somewhat complicated word. It carries a lot of emotional freight, of course. Less than pleasant, to be sure. The word conjures up acts of evil and fear and diabolical entities. Movies such as Poltergeist, The Exorcist, The Nightmare on Elm Street, Damien, Rosemary's Baby come to mind, all present in the culture at large, and all horrifying many people and frightening them half out of their minds. I've only seen part of one of those, and that was enough. I'm a coward. Cult films based on the evil acts of demon possessed by dolls or ventriloquist dummies and clowns manage to frighten the devil out of us. I'm a bit of a scaredy cat, as I said, so I can't claim to have seen and enjoyed these films, yet we must admit that they have an impact, a great impact on popular culture. I won't ask you who among you have seen these by raising your hand. I won't do that. I'll just give you a medal for courage later. In the ancient Greek world, however, the word demon, which they pronounce daimon, referred to a guiding spirit, a positive sort of spirit that helped lead people in the way that they should go so that they would have a good and pleasant and ethical and good life. A synonym for daimon was genius, an attribute of an enlivening spirit and source of creativity. And Plato used that word to refer to Socrates as having a daimon in him. And certainly Socrates, who has educated the world many times over, that daimon would have been a very good thing as he educated us and drew the knowledge that we needed to live a just and beautiful life out of us, which is what the word education means, right? To draw out of us that which we need, that is already within, to bring us fullness and a good life. So how and why did the tradition of demon possession, such as we have in our lesson for today, come about? Well, in late Judaism, demons became associated with the spirit of the dead. That was in the intertestamental time, after the time of the Old Testament's writing and before the New Testament. By the time of Jesus, then, a demon was a power, a spirit. It was a power in spirit form that assumed the physical body in order to carry out the orders of the devil. Their spirit realm was the abyss, the place from whence they arose and existed, had their primary existence. So from a powerful, positive aspect in human beings, the word was transformed from good to evil, and the cause of evils to persons or for objects such as unclean pagan idols where demons were said to be existing. And so those idols were possessed, and so the persons were said to be possessed. If the story of the demoniac that we have in our lesson today were put in our present context, I suggest that the possessed man would be found living in a morgue, bound in a straitjacket, from whom no one would dare to try approach, for the sense of evil and the power of evil that emanated from him. The bonds that he broke, in other words, in our time would have been like a straitjacket, perhaps. The possessed one would have shouted out in several different terrible voices, such as we associate with folks who have different personalities living inside of them. And by the way, they would have shouted it in Latin, because the word legion is a Latin word referring to an army of 5,000 soldiers. We would say he was totally and completely possessed. It would make a compelling horror film, would it not? With what must be considered great courage and confidence, Jesus, there in a Gentile pagan area of Galilee, way far from his own Jewish homeland, forced the demon to give his name to him, thereby giving Jesus, as was the belief of the day, power to call them out and then to cast them into a herd of swine. Unclean spirits straitjacketed themselves into unclean animals. So the progress of the demon-possessed man is completely reversed, and the unclean animals, the swine, become those who are straitjacketed and throw themselves back into hell. He called them out, an expression currently in use to take people to task and to account for their actions. But in less horrifying situations, we speak of distressed or bad acting persons as having their demons. And that's why they do what they do. I have my demons, and that's why I act in ways that are not loving neighbors as myself as often as I could. I suspect that we all have a touch of demon in us. In some of the old paintings and illustrations from previous generations, you recall that there was an angel sitting on this shoulder on the right side, and there was a devil sitting on the left side, and they're whispering into our ear, and they're fighting it out inside our own head. We're the third party, their battleground. I suggest, however, that that is not a Christian or a Jewish way of thinking about evil. For God allows no one to be his peer. So where and whence then does this notion of having our own demons come from? I suggest that it comes from that part of us that's like the dark side of the moon, that we can never see but is always there. That part of ourselves that is in the dark. It's there, but we can't quite see it. And so I sometimes act out of my shadow when I'm not aware of it. And the only way we can work with that shadow or that darkness inside ourselves is to have somebody who loves us, hopefully, to name that shadow beast inside of us and say, Phil, did you realize that you were acting really paranoid in that situation? And then, because I've had some training and because I've had a few hard knocks on the head, I'm able to say, let me think about that. Is that why I was so hard when I replied to that person when I didn't really need to be? The key is that we all have a shadow, but the nice thing about the shadow is that's where our energy comes from. That's the limbic system. That's our brainstem. That's the medulla oblongata. It is the lizard brain. That's the part of the brain that knows about fight or flight. And if you need to fight or fly or flee, then you're going to need energy and need it on the spot instantly. That same energy, psychologists tell us and doctors tell us, is the energy that flows up into our lives to help us to motivate ourselves and to carry out our tasks. When we're aware that we're operating out of our shadow, as they say, I might be doing things that I'm not even aware of that break community or that otherwise give myself a hard time and other people around me a hard time. So when the shadow beast comes up from that limbic system into my consciousness, if I'm afraid of it, or if I don't know why it's there, then it's going to control me like a demon. It's going to take over my actions and my thoughts, and I end up doing things I would never do in daylight. Certainly not in front of God and everybody. The key is to recognize that beast when it comes up through the trap door. To see it for what it is, and to say, I know you are trying to help me, to recognize that there's something I need to be afraid of there, but I don't need to let that fear control me or force me to act in a way that is uncharitable. And on my better days, I catch it, and I name him, and I say, you're the old demon fear. And I don't need to act on you right now because that won't help. Come, let me embrace you, take you into my arms, and tell you like a baby that is afraid, all shall be well and all manner of thing shall be well. And so that those little demons, the demons that we have inside of us, can be converted from the shadow and brought into the light. where God works with us to make us new, the one who makes all things new, and even we ourselves. But it requires a little bit of repentance to be able to name that beast, because if I feel like I have it all together and I know everything that needs to be known and I know the best way to go forward no matter what, then I've set myself up to be eaten alive by the old demon, for him to put me in a straitjacket and to have me clamped down where I can't live the life fully that God has intended for me to have and for all of us to have. And so the fear of that lizard brain can come into our thoughtful brain and be named for what it is and be gentle thereby. I know you're there. I know you're afraid. Let's talk. Fear, our friend, warning us of possible danger, can be comforted as Jesus comforted the man formerly possessed by a legion of demons. Music, they say, soothes the savage beast. Y'all know I like music, for better or worse, and sometimes I ask you to sing songs you don't know. Forgive me. But if music soothes the savage beast, then the words of that quote that I just gave you, all shall be well and all manner of things shall be well, from St. Julian of Norwich, the great monastic mystic. If we were to take those words and set them to music, those are the words, and that is the music that will allow my fears that hold me back to be transformed from the beast, to an honest friend, to share the positive energy of faith that with hope and love, they say, can move a mountain and even take the straitjacket off of my own life.